Thank you, Chairman. Let me start with a question about the state partnership program, if I might, General Nordhaus. You know I've long been an enthusiastic supporter. You mentioned 115 nations around the world. In my view, the proof of concept of the state partnership program is best exemplified by the California National Guard Ukraine partnership that goes back, I think, to 1993. I had the opportunity to visit Ukraine in 2016. Obviously, they were engaged in active combat in the Donbass, but the transformation of the Ukrainian military from a Soviet style to a NATO style, US style, I think was significantly facilitated by that partnership. Do I misunderstand? Am I correct?
Senator Coons, I would completely agree with your statement. And we're seeing that across the board where our partnerships, it starts mill to mill, but then goes mill to civ and civ to civ. And so it builds these trust partnerships, it builds partner capacity, and it builds resiliency not only within their nation, but we learn from each of these countries as well. We bring that innovation spirit back to our formations, and it makes us stronger all the way across the board.
Are you going to receive funding through this CR, FY25 CR, in time to prepare for summer exercises that are relevant to these particular missions?
Senator, I do want to thank Congress. In this year-long CR, we were able to receive funding for our state partnership program, so thank you very much. We are putting it to good use. We are short a little bit, as I have states that are looking in the Indo-PACOM theater to do exercises, and so we're pulling together and trying to mitigate those impacts. The state of Washington is working with 2 of their partners to put on an exercise. I think we're going to be able to figure out how to do it, but we look the growth of the state partnership continues to be robust. This year, we're adding 9. And so as we look to the future, funding of the state partnership to match the slow and steady growth, I think is very critical to that. We're seeing nations continue to want to partner, and we're seeing states continue to put in and apply for these partnerships. And they're very robust, and they really fight. And I probably get most consternation from the adjutants generals when they're not selected for, a state. But we have an incredible, transparent, and repeatable process in selecting, and we work with not only OSD, but Office Secretary of Defense, but also the State Department and the COCOMs to make sure we match up the right partners with the right states.
And I have visited deployed units of National Guard from 6 different states in the field, from Latvia to Djibouti. My hope is that my state, which has long had a partnership with Trinidad and Tobago, has an air reserve or air guard function in cyber, and may well be able to expand to Malta, but that's a competitive process. Just know that I view the state partnership program as something that is a real force multiplier, low cost, high impact. We talked about KC-130s. You mentioned that as the next platform. I'm concerned about the NGRIA accounts. I think literally all of you referenced NGRIA and the importance of keeping whether it's old aircraft or other platforms working, and money that's going into maintenance that could instead be put into new platforms that would require less maintenance. I would just be interested in you are supposed to, all of you, be receiving proportional and concurrent fielding of modern equipment, but we are at or near the lowest level in a decade of that. Air Force Reserves, for example, spends nearly 70% of your NGRIA allocation just to keep very old aircraft working, money that could go to modernization because of, again, the 166 in Delaware. I'm very attentive to the C-130J modernization, but I'd be interested in your view about what's the value of modernization upgrades for C-130Js? What's the value across any of your services for more NGRIA funding and that balance between maintenance and upgrade? I'll start with General Nordhaus and then move to Lieutenant General Harder and then move to Lieutenant General Healy, if we might. I could see interest.
Thanks, Senator Coons. I'm going to quickly take you back to my time flying the F-16 over forces in Iraq. And so I'm over the top, and without NGRIA, I wouldn't have a Lightning pod that I could have used to save lives on the ground. I wouldn't have had the engine in the jet to give me the thrust capable to meet and defeat threats. As we look every year, whether it's in the MAF community or in the CAF community, those forces make us not only modernize those equipments, but they make us combat interoperable and capable to be part of the joint force, whether it's here in the homeland to be able to do our homeland defense missions with AESA radars on our F-16s that enables us to have the capabilities we need for the NORTHCOM mission, or to be able to have jamming pods that are needed to fight up at the next level for adversaries that we might face.
General Harder?
Yes, Senator, Negrea is absolutely essential. We receive less than 1% of the Army's procurement budget. And so our fleets are aging. I talked about the percentage of fuel and logistics support that's in the United States Army Reserve. And so we do use Negrea to procure exactly those systems. We have been focused more on communication and network and survivability in that spectrum on the battlefield to try to encourage my Army teammates to help us with the cascading effect of that critical equipment. But Negrea is essential to plugging that modernization gap.
Thank you, General. General Healy?
Yes, sir. Negrea is an absolute essential part of our budget. That's 55% of our procurement dollars right there. We use it much like General Nordhaus said. Our F-16s at the 482nd down at Homestead, the oldest F-16s in the inventory right now, but they have an AESA radars in each one of them. They've got EW pods, and I equate it to we might be bringing a knife to a gunfight, but it's a really good knife. So we use it for modernization on that end. Meanwhile, as you mentioned, the majority of our fleet, 88% of our fleet is over 39 years old. So it's everything we can do to keep them involved in the fight through secure comms, ensuring that they know what their surroundings are when they go into the Pacific, making sure they have infrared radar detection systems, up-armored and so forth, make them more survivable as well.
General Harder, you referenced in your opening forward deployment of some of your equipment into potential theaters. Could you just say a little bit more about overseas depots and how that strikes the balance in terms of training and readiness versus spending money on repair and maintenance?
Absolutely, Senator. So right now, back here in Coons, I'm funded to maintain really about 35% of my equipment. About 25% is maintained at home station. The rest, 75%, is maintained at one of my equipment concentration sites. In those mechanics, I'm funded about 50% of that requirement. So I really focus on units that are deploying, units that are going to major exercises. So we thought, why not, let's start positioning some of those critical fleets forward. We, the Army Reserve, are maintaining that. We're coordinating with Army Materiel Command. I have one-star commands in both Europe and Pacific theaters. So right now we have an maintenance company on the ground in Europe. We're looking to put one of my bulk petroleum transportation companies there, as well as an ordnance and ammo company, and we're looking to do the same thing in the Pacific. Posture the fleets forward. The Army Reserve we're the ones with the equipment that's going to be called upon. Let's close the gap on time and distance. Should something bad happen, let's have it in theater. We'll maintain it, and we're going to continue to work that pilot, Senator.
So if I hear you right, the tyranny of distance means better to move the really heavy, big stuff long way first, and then have the people follow it, rather than have the people and the very heavy stuff here and not be able to move it and not be relevant if things evolve.
Exactly right. Plus, we can focus on maintaining it over there.
I think the logistics, my brother was second armored, the logistics lesson from those first few days of the conflict in Ukraine were huge, and that's part of the challenge of keeping an actually combat-capable force. A question to all of you. I understand there's another senator coming, so I'm just going to keep asking questions, unless you interrupt me, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I think that Senator Shaheen and Senator Hoven are on the way. Is that right?
Senator Shaheen.
Good.
Hope they get here soon.
I've got more questions. On readiness, because of the CR, the continuing resolution, the department didn't make a request to pay for the southwest border or overseas operations. And both of these would normally be done in a supplemental. The way the department chose to implement the CR takes billions out of the base budgets to pay for these other deployments and missions. I'd be interested in hearing from each of you how you've been impacted by the CR generally and the trade-offs you have to make, training, maintenance, how the hiring freeze and the DRP has impacted your workforce. And I have a particular question about the MilTech shortfall. If anyone wants to speak to the OPM process and how it's working to literally have to have approved one at a time your MilTechs, I'm very concerned about how that's impacting readiness. I'll start from General Healy, who seemed quite excited about the MilTech point.
To get to that point first, sir. So we currently, as I mentioned in my opening statement, 28 days of the month, our full-time force is 25%, and that's what mans our bases, to keep the lights on. They're also the instructors, the evaluators. They're the ones who train and get ready our part-time force. Through normal movement, they are scheduled to move around the country into new positions, a PCS, a permanent change of station. Part of that is considered a new hire. So they apply for the job and they go. Of the 440 people that were caught in this, dual status technicians during the hiring freeze, they were considered civilians, can't move, can't hire them into the new positions, even though they were existing dual status technicians already. On April 2nd, it was identified as a major impasse to us, and they were universally exempted from DRP. Since then, of the 440, we've gotten 21 through OPM and into USA Jobs. And the direct effect on readiness is, as I stated, these are the instructors, the evaluators, the people that teach our traditional reservists how to get ready for the future deployments. So we will see an impact in the beginning of 27 or 26-1, or the first half of 26, and the second half of 26 with the readiness state of our deployers going out the door, sir.
As you well know, I suspect Dover Air Force Base has both a active duty and a reserve component. They're absolutely critical to mission readiness out of Dover. I would benefit from some direct input to me, if possible, in response to my questions about how this OPM choke point is impacting Dover and impacting your units elsewhere, so that I could be constructive in offering some input to OPM and DoD broadly about how this is impacting training readiness deployments.
I'll take that for the record, sir. I'll get back.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak up about the Miltech Challenge, or more broadly, training readiness, and in particular, the DRP?
Yes, Senator. So I'll engage the DRP, just an anecdotal point, but I bet all my teammates have the exact same challenge, and it relates to your question and comment about the hiring freeze. So, for example, at one of my formations forward in Europe, I had an office, a finance office that supports a bunch of Army soldiers. For context, the Army Reserve has about 11,000 civilians, 7,000 military technicians, 4,000 Department of the Army civilians. The finance office had 4 people in it, 3 civilians and a military. All 3 civilians took the DRP. So now I've got 1 soldier there trying to support what's going on. Then you have the hiring freeze, and you're trying to work through the authorities to backfill those positions. John laid it out well. As far as the continuing resolution, the challenge for the Army Reserve is when you have you're funded last year's dollars. It's orders. It's cutting those orders for soldiers. We've curtailed exercises that we're doing this year. Schools get impacted. And right now we're trying to figure out how to make sure we can pay all our soldiers for their statutory battle assemblies in September. So we're churning through that. We're looking for, programming authorities through the Army. But it creates a lot of turbulence, and predictability is the most important thing for an Army Reserve soldier.
Senator Coons, thanks for the question. As was discussed by my teammates here, our military technicians are the lifeblood, those full-timers that are prepping everything, getting everything ready to go, whether it's on a flight line or facilities, to be able to get the equipment ready. And so anytime there's any pause or disruption in the hiring, it's going to impact readiness. So we've worked incredibly hard through the department to open that up and get that moving as fast as we can. We have had some success, but it does impact our readiness and lethality. And so we look forward to getting that back to full speed for hiring. And then on the CR, certainly consistent funding as we think about planning and exercising into the future and into the summer months, having the dollars early so that we can plan and predict where we're going to go, where we're going to exercise. And that includes the exercise we do with our state partners across the board.
I'm going to ask you a last question, General Nordhaus, if I might, while Senator Shaheen settles in. I recently read DHS is requesting 20,000 guardsmen for interior immigration enforcement. It seems clear to me that it's important that there not be any crossing of the line between the Guard's role and domestic law enforcement. The Guard does not train for domestic law enforcement, is that correct?
We have military police, security police, and we have over the years trained for in support of law enforcement if we get called to do the mission set.
How are you going to ensure that guardsmen deployed understand the legal environment they're operating in and the restrictions that may impose on their conduct?
Senator, if you look at presidential inauguration 60 or 59, anytime our folks get called up to a mission to support, those are all things that we go through. What are the rules for the use of force? What's the legalities, law? What mission sets are they going to be on? What equipment do they need to be able to do the mission set? So we're very focused through the adjutants generals to make sure that they have the training and they're being put on missions that they can support and do following the Constitution, the law, and any policy or guidance that's laid out to them.
Thank you, General. Senator.
Great.